Welcome to our lecture on immunology. We are going to review some of the basic concepts about the immune system, and soon after that, we are going to start working with mathematical models in the context of immunology. This is a rather fascinating subject, and it brings together areas that we have previously learned and studied. But to get started, let's just keep in mind that the immune system is the Department of Defense of our body. And as the mission of the defense forces, um, the mission is to keep off any, the Department of Defense is always aiming at keeping away the unwanted. And in this case, the unwanted are going to have names such as pathogens. The pathogens are the things that we do not want in our body. And there is rather a complex system with underlying mechanisms that trigger um, the best that is in terms of keeping our body safe and keeping those pathogens off. So we have some references for this lecture. Perhaps you really like to check out. This is an open source textbook, and the chapter on viruses and also the chapter on the immune system are excellent background readings for the type of things we will be discussing. And we have spent a fair amount of time learning about ecology. We were using concepts such as species in interaction. They were interacting with each other, and we learned about systems where there were populations of predators interacting with populations of prey. Well, it turns out that these concepts are not completely isolated from the from ways in which we would like to better understand the immune system. So there are two important interactions that relate to basic functions of the immune system. One of them is predator-prey interactions, and the other one has to do with competitions. So when we refer to predator-prey interactions, we are referring to scenarios in which predators are catching or capturing prey and they are killing their capture. And it really is about transferring energy. So they kill the prey, they reproduce, and um, that keeps them alive, and it causes the population of predators to grow in size. However, this has a negative impact on the population of prey, and in the absence of prey, the predators would die. Now, the analogy I'd like to bring up here to your attention is that in the immune system, there are cells that are part of the immune system that will um, will find these so-called pathogens. Remember, pathogens are the persona non grata here. And these immune cells would divide and the population size of those cells would increase, and it would come to a point in which they remove these pathogens out of circulation. So in the absence of pathogen, the population of immune cells would decay. They don't have really a reason, therefore, to expand or clone themselves, and they would rather, once the mission is accomplished, the job is done, then they get cleared out. So this population would decay. The other concept we'd like to discuss has to do with competition. This means that two species or more are sharing some common resources, and the species that can use here the efficiency pays off. So that species that find a way of using the resource uh, very efficiently, will grow better, and will have the upper hand, will be a superior competitor. And that superiority may drive the the inferior competitor out of business. In other words, may actually cause that the inferior competitor goes extinct. The other plausible scenario is that both species may coexist with each other. In the immune system, we can consider different species of immune cells that are very high skill tasks, and there are cells that deliver specifically a task in particular. Okay, so you can consider those as different species of immune cells, and they may recognize the same infection. They may be activated again, you want to make the analogy here with these immune cells as if they were part of the Department of Defense, but you can also think of a situation that requires first responders, right? When you think of first responders, that's when you think about police officers and paramedics and firefighters. So they are all responding to the same call, whether it's a fire, whether it's an earthquake, or the aftermath of a tornado or something. And but each of them has a very specific skill set and equipment and the works, and they respond to the call. They go to the same site, and each of them is doing um, a specific task. So each species of cells can expand when it is exposed to a pathogen, and they may kill the pathogen. So we can then say that if one immune cell species is more efficient at expanding once there is an activation, when there is one of these calls, then it fights the infection more efficiently and can prevent the response by another species of immune cell. So if one does the job quickly, then that prevents the other species from expanding. Expanding here means cloning or increasing number of the same type. And the latter happens due to the reduction in the number of pathogens to levels that are too low for the inferior immune cell to become stimulated and divide. So, what are some common pathogens, right? Pathogens are the unwanted, the things that the immune system is fighting off or keeping away. And here are some of the usual suspects. You will find viruses as the a common pathogen that we become in contact and we don't really want to keep for too long. Then we have bacteria, and we may also find fungi. Okay, there's an excellent repository that is maintained by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, and I make a reference here. So here's a view of that website I just mentioned. It's called the Advanced Molecular Detection. Um, I don't know, you call this program or something. This is maintained by the CDC, and it's an excellent website for you to visit here and explore number of information and resources they have archived here. Okay, so here is the URL. It's rather simple to remember: Advanced Molecular Detection, AMD. Well, let's talk about one of those pathogens in particular. Let's talk about viruses. Here we have a schematic, and the portion here of this schematic is you may want to, um, some of you may have actually a very excellent background on microbiology and clinical research, but this is presumably a general audience. So I'm just gonna go here and give you perhaps the most basic way we may think about a cell. And as I'm telling you this, I'm also transitioning from what we have discussed so far, in which we have talked about epidemics, in the context in which the unit of study is an individual. So we think of groups of individuals, populations of individuals, and they are either susceptible or infected and infectious or infected but latent and so on. They have different states. But what we are discussing now in terms of the immune system means that now the unit of our mathematical models is going to change. Instead of referring to dynamic processes happening at the population level, where each individual is called a host, okay? Now we are going to imagine what happens inside one typical host, inside one host. And so we're going to refer now to populations of cells and pathogens and other particles interacting with each other. So here are the basic ingredients of the life cycle of a virus. Think of the cell, and what I'm showing you here is kind of half. You can think of the most basic shape of a cell is the shape of an egg, okay? And you can think of the egg has the middle part as yellow or orange. And okay, I'm gonna have to tell you to stay tuned because we're going to postpone this conversation. We're going to continue this conversation on the next part of this lecture.